if he wills, do everything, even that. But he did not accept the proposition. The next day, when I went to answer the calls of nature towards a cluster of tamarisk trees, I found that on two twigs of one can I do that with my willpower? If you, with devotion, pray to the Lord, if you have faith in the Lord, so that faith and pure devotion can make God change his own rules. He can overrule anything. You can see the judge, an ordinary judge, a magistrate in the court of law saying loudly, overruled, argument overruled. So he can overrule anything. If a judge can overrule here in this world, what cannot the Lord do? The Lord can overrule any rules of his. In some of the religions, they tell, oh, God cannot take a form, he is formless. How can God be a human being? God cannot come as a human being, an avatara. God cannot be worshipped in the idols. God cannot do this, God cannot do that. So, on the one hand, we tell God is omnipotent. That is, God is all powerful. What is meant by omnipotent? He is all powerful. On the other hand, you tell God cannot do this, God cannot do that. He cannot be manifested in an idol, in an image, in a photo. God cannot become a human being. God cannot take a form. God has to be formless. So you can see the English usage called as oxymoron, paradoxical things. So what is that? On the one hand, we tell God is all powerful, omnipotent, and on the other hand, you tell God cannot do this, God cannot do that. It is impossible for God to do this. It is his own rule. He cannot overrule it. So what does that mean? You do not have the faith in the omnipotence, in the all powerful strength of God. So you don't have faith. You ask a person to go into a place, a graveyard or the cremation ground in the night or some dark places. He'll be afraid. He will never go there. Ask him why? Because they are afraid of ghosts. They are afraid of so many other things. But they are not having the faith in the protective hand of the Lord. They are so much having the faith in the destructive hand of the ghosts, demons, and other things. So you can see what is our faith. We have faith in all sorts of negative forces, but we don't have faith in the all powerful God. He can protect us. So, what can God do? So, your faith can make any miracles. Your devotion, your faith can bring in any miracles. Anything can happen. Anything can be changed. We have seen that so many things. Now, our great young child Markandeya, the child devotee, was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. By the dint of his devotion and faith in Lord Shiva, he was supposed to die according to his Ayushya. His age was only up to 16. So he was supposed to die. So Lord Yama came to take him away. He put the noose, seeing that frightful form of Lord Yama coming there, standing there to pull him. That small child of 16 who was terrified ran away to Ishtadevata Lord Shiva. He embraced his Lord, that Shivalinga. And we know with this devotion and due to his faith in Lord Shiva had to come down and punish Lord Yama. Tell him, do not touch my devotees. Do not touch, do not try to disturb my devotees. And he also extended the life of that small child who was supposed to die at his 16th age, 16th year. So he extended his life to permanently living on this earth until this sun, moon, and the earth exists. So you can see Markandeya still existing. He's the one who has written or given down the Markandeya Purana. He is a Rishi in all the things of Divine Mother, especially the Durga Saptashati and many other places. You can see Markandeya Rishi. So he's eternally there. So many other Chiranjeevis, those who are living. It is by the dint of their faith and by the dint of their devotion. So God is all powerful. By your faith, you can change any rules of the Lord. Lord can change it for you. Bhishmacharya, you can see on the battleground, the great devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. On the other hand, Krishna himself had vowed, he had given a word that he will never take up any arms. He will be just a charioteer. He would never fight in the battle. He would become a charioteer and help Arjuna, that's all. Unarmed always. And here on the other side, the great devotee Bhishmacharya had vowed that he will make Lord Krishna to hold the arms. So now the Lord has vowed something, his devotee has vowed something. So much was the great devotion of that Bhishmacharya that the Lord has to break his law to make his own devotee's vow true. So that is the way the Lord behaves. He becomes the slave, he becomes the servant of the devotees who surrender to him, who has Shuddha Bhakti, who has the faith in the Lord. So if you have that faith, that is, God is all powerful. How can you tell that God cannot do this, God cannot break his law, God cannot protect me, he cannot come to me, he cannot take a human form, he cannot talk to me? You are limiting. Now Ramakrishna in another place, you have to see, it is told by our elders everywhere in his life and in his teachings in the gospel, we see that Ramakrishna always disliking or hating two important things. What is that? Lust and lucre, lust and greed. So kama kanchana. Now, why did he hate? As a universal being, as avatar Purusha, he should not hate anything. No, that was an impediment. That is the main hurdle for all us jivas to reach God. So that is the two great impediments or hurdles which obstruct us from going towards God. That's why, that is the reason Ramakrishna stresses to give up these two things. It is not hatred, it's only the love of God. These are the two main obstructions or the hurdles. So like these kama and kanchana, lust and greed, he also hated one more thing, which our elders used to say in Ramakrishna Ashrama. And what was that? Ramakrishna did not like the idea of limiting God. You should never limit God. So do not limit God. Don't tell that God cannot take a form, God cannot take a human form, God cannot be that, God cannot what do you call be worshipped in the idols. God cannot do that. God cannot do this. On the one hand, you are telling He is all powerful. Then, on the other hand, you tell that God can't do this. God can't do this. You are limiting God. So, you used to tell, never limit God. So, with this stress that he disliked this idea to never limit God. God can do anything. God is all powerful. So, how will that help us? Yes, surrender to God, pray to God, keep your complete faith in God, and see everything will work wonder. So, as much as your faith, so much is the result. So, as your faith increases, so much will be the miracles the Lord will perform to protect you. He can overrule anything. So, that gives us so much of peace that your faith, your devotion, pure devotion, can change the law of God only for you because you have so much of faith. So you can change, it's in your hand. God, who is all powerful, omnipotent, can overrule anything and help you at any time. So that is very, very important. That's why I took more time to stress this. So bring out your faith, bring out your devotion to the Lord, your Ishtadevata, and see how everything, the whole world changes. We don't have faith at all. You have been given by your Guru the Ishtadevata mantra. The Guru has given you the mantra. It is just like a Kamadhenu Kalpavriksha, taking the name of the Lord with devotion. Every day, Holy Mother Sharda Devi tells at least 15 to 20,000 times, or 10, sorry, she tells 10 to 15,000 times every day. It will become alive, awakened, and it can yield any result you want. It can become like a wish fulfilling tree. You have the wish fulfilling tree in your own hand, in your own house, and you are groping in darkness, running here and there. So, in some of the South Indian languages, there is a saying, keeping the butter, holding the butter in your own palm. That person was searching for ghee, clarified butter, the whole town. The butter is there in his own hand. He could have heated it. Even if he keeps that in his hand for a long time, the heat of the body itself will melt it and make it a ghee. So he has to just heat it. That's all. The butter will become clarified butter, ghee. But he goes on searching here and there. There's one more saying in India, that is, a mother was keeping her own child on her waist, carrying the child, and she has forgotten the child is on her waist, and she started searching for the child the whole village. She couldn't find it. Finally, she found that it was on her own waist. Likewise, we are having the Lord in our own heart, Antaryamin, indweller, and we have been given the mantra by our Gurudeva with so much of compassion on us, and it is like Kamadhenu or Kalpavriksha, wish yielding tree or the wish fulfilling cow, but we don't have faith, we don't use it at all. Every day, if you do 10 to 15,000 times, it will become awakened. And after that, whatever desire you ask for, let it be unselfish and helping, which is for the betterment of your life, then it will yield. So it will give you. Holy Mother Sharda Devi, when some devotee, lady devotee started telling what nothing is happening to me, then she tells, what is this? Perform the japa properly, at least minimum 10 to 15,000 times every day, and see then and come to me and ask that nothing has happened to you. I'm answerable then. So use it, have faith and do. When you have faith, you'll start acting. So faith is belief in action. You will start using that Kalpavriksha, Kamadhenu, which is in your own heart, in your own hand. Use it and get the benefit. So now Mathurnath Babu is telling, Father, I am defeated. Madhav sometimes believed that it was physical illness that produced the master a sort of mental derangement which manifested itself as an excess of devotional feelings. Just like the present day psychologist and psychiatrist, you go to them and tell something, they will give a particular medical term. It may be in Roman or Latin or Greek, and they will give you some disease. They will put a band on your head that you are psychologically affected or you have some psychological problems. Anything and everything, they will make it a disease. So, likewise, that is the Western standard. There was one person telling that in the law of what do you call this auditing, the auditors, and also it's the same thing in the British way of thinking. What is that? The auditors also tell that, and the British way of thinking. Recently, our great sadhu in Bangalore, who lived for 92 years, and in that 92 years, nearly 70 years of his life, nearing it may be 69 or 68. So it was spent in the monastic vow as a monastic member, as a life of God. In the life of God, he spent nearly 70 years. So you can see what a great soul he was. We have seen him from very near. He was a great soul, pure. So much of purity in Kamini and Kanchana, Kama Kanchana. All that we had seen such a great scholar, always performing japa, meditation, so much kind heartedness, all these things we have seen. So he, revered Harshanandaji Maharaj, used to tell that when he was a young brahmachari, he had to come to face the auditors because he was in charge of the kitchen and the shrine. He had to go on his bicycle, purchase some vegetables, fruits, and other things. You know, the vegetable vendors, in those days, there were no malls, there were no big markets. It was all small, very poor farmers or some poor slum dweller bringing vegetables and fruits and keeping there on the streets and selling them. So when you buy from them, where can they give you the bill? Where will be the bill? So you can't produce any bill for them. Even now, that is the same condition in India. The poor guy will be sitting there. He doesn't have a what do you call the machinery to bill it or to calculate it. So everything he will tell the money. You have to give him the money. There is no credit card. There is no debit card for them, or they cannot issue any receipts because they're so poor. So they're street vendors. So now, what is the system done by the auditors there? You have to write a voucher. Then two people have to sign, the person who has bought it and the in charge of the ashrama, to prove it. So those vouchers were created. He had to go regularly to the market. Harshananda Jumarji used to tell that he used to cycle, take the cycle, go to the bazaar or the market nearby, bring the vegetables and fruits, and then put the vouchers. So during the auditing, the auditors will come, go on checking that the signature of the brahmachari, Surya Chaitanya or Sundara Krishna, that was the earlier name of revered Harshanandaji Maharaj. His Purvashrama name, pre-monastic name was Sundara Krishna Bembar. And after that, after getting brahmacharya, he got the name Surya Chaitanya. So he used to sign, and the auditors would call him and tell, how can I believe that that was the rate? You might have, that is the duty of the auditors. You might have taken more money, written more money, and pocketed some money. You might have cheated. So how can we believe that that is the same rate which you have put here? Then that brahmachari was a was very sincere and a man of integrity, boy of integrity, got very upset. What? Do I tell a lie? I'm becoming a brahmacharin and a monastic member. Do you think we tell lies? Then the auditor could understand it. Then he told Swamiji or Brahmachariji, do not, Maharaj, don't get upset. That's our auditing law. What is that? Every person is a scoundrel or a thief unless he proves otherwise. Everyone is a scoundrel or a thief unless he proves otherwise. So the British also have the same understanding. So here, the Western standard, we can see anything and everything, you have to suspect that. So here you can see that Mathur, the exuberance of devotion towards the Lord is making Ramakrishna to behave in a different way from the normal people. So he thought that the physical illness is the reason he believed, which has produced in Sri Ramakrishna a sort of mental derangement. They are thinking that it is mental derangement because it's not like any other normal people, which manifested itself in as excess of devotional feelings. And now he tried by reason and argument to dispel the mood of Sri Ramakrishna. Thus, the worldly minded Mathur could spend a long time with him, reflecting and discussing a great deal about his condition, partly out of his curiosity and partly out of kindness, as he mistook that he was genuinely ill. But at the same time, he had also a feeling that all that he saw in Sri Ramakrishna was caused by true love of God. Because so much of purity, so much of love, he never had anything in his life other than God. He never thought anything, he never did anything other than God. So Mathur could see that. Mathur was a witness to that. So he was always in the thought of God, true love of God. Everyday instances were coming to his notice of Sri Ramakrishna's strange behavior under the influence of this fresh onburst of divine love. Instances which deepened his anxiety and perplexity regarding his health and mental conditions. For example, one day, Sri Ramakrishna saw a vision of Divine Mother within himself. Sometimes he would see the manifestation of Divine Mother in the cat, and he used to feed the cat. Oh, Divine Mother, you have come in the form of this cat. He used to feed the offerings to Mother to that cat. And sometimes he would see the manifestation of Divine Mother in himself, and seating himself on the seat for worship, offered all the articles of worship to himself. The previous day, he had performed Arati of the Universal Mother continuously for 3 long hours, making the officers of the temple restless and agitated. The day before, he had rolled on the ground, rubbing his face against the dusty earth for not having realized God, not having the vision of Divine Mother, and wept so piteously that people gathered round him. Ah, how many indeed are such incidences of his life that were heard from the Master? One day, Sri Ramakrishna entered a Shiva temple. You know, in Dakshineshwar, there are 12 Shiva temples, small Shiva temples towards Ganga. So on the bank, exactly on the bank of Ganga, you can see the 12 spirals of small Shiva temples. So 12 Shiva temples, 6 on one side and 6 on the other side. In between, in the small, there is a small gap for people to go. If you go to Dakshineshwar, you can see. So then there is a place, courtyard, then you can reach the temple, there, the Kali temple, and there is the prayer hall. Behind the Kali temple, there is another big temple of Radha Kanta, Radha Krishna's temple. So these are the complex of temples there. So many other deities are there. So there are 12 Shiva temples there. So Sri Ramakrishna entered one of the Shiva temple there, There are 12 Shiva temples facing the courtyard of the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. So he entered one of them and began to recite with devotion to Shiva. He had so much great devotion to Shiva that he began to recite a hymn, that is the Shiva Mahimna Stotra on the glory of Shiva, called the Mahima Stotra. Shiva Mahimna Stotra, you all chant that Shiva Mahimna Stotra, you know that. And in the course of his recital, he was besides himself with an ecstatic mood when he came to the following verses. If you read that Shiva Mahimna Stotra, you can see that it is written. I am not going to quote the Sanskrit verse now. The English translation of that verse is, O Lord Shiva, if the blue mountains of the Himalayas can be made the ink. We in olden days we used to use the ink fountain pen. So for that we needed ink. Nowadays everything has changed. So people may not know we had to fill the ink into the pen, then there would be a nib, and then we had to close that and write, and the ink will be leaking, and so many other problems where there all our hands would become either black or blue or red with that ink. So all that problem we used to face in our childhood. So nowadays you don't have all those problems. So Lord Shiva, O Lord Shiva, if the blue mountain of the Himalayas be the ink, the ocean, the whole ocean, so many 7 oceans are there. If the ocean, the water of the ocean, the ink pot, the biggest branch of the heavenly tree is the Kalpavriksha. The biggest branch of the heavenly tree is made the pen, the earth, the writing leaf, the pages. And if taking these, the goddess of learning, Saraswati herself, because she's so intelligent, she's having so much of knowledge, all the knowledge of this universe she has, and more than that. So if the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati, taking hold of all these things, the ink pot as the ocean, the mountain, Himalayan mountain as the ink, then the ocean is the ink pot, then the biggest branch of the Kalpavriksha, the wish fulfilling tree in the heaven, be made the pen, and Mother Saraswati herself, the goddess of learning herself, were to write for eternity, not for 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 day, 1 year. Write for eternity. She starts writing the glory of Lord Shiva, about Lord Shiva, for eternity. Even then, the limit of thy excellences cannot be reached. Nobody can understand you, nobody can complete you, complete the glories of your speciality. So that was what the Shiva Mahimna there, that particular stotra is telling. And hearing that, chanting that, feeling the meaning of that, see the wonderful meaning of that verse, that imagination of the great devotee pot. O Lord, if the blue mountain be the ink, the ocean, the ink pot, the biggest branch of the heavenly tree, the pen, the earth, the writing leaf, and if taking these, the goddess of learning herself, Mother Saraswati herself, were to write for eternity, even then the limits of the excellences cannot be reached. She cannot complete it, even if she goes on writing for eternity, infinite time. The glories, that infinite excellences cannot be completed. That is your greatness, O Lord Shiva. So reciting the above verse, feeling the content of that, Sri Ramakrishna lost himself in the intense experience of the glory of Lord Shiva, forgot the hymn, forgot himself, the language of the hymn, the order of the verses and all other things, and he began to cry out loudly, saying again and again, O great God, Mahadeva, Devadideva Mahadeva. Lord Shiva is addressed as Devadideva Mahadeva. O Devadideva Mahadeva, Devadi Deva means the God of the gods, the Lord of the gods. Mahadeva, the great God. Devadi Deva Mahadeva, O great God. How can I express if Mother Saraswati eternally writing, making all these things as a pen and the ink, the ocean itself as the ink pot, and write your glories for eternity, if she cannot complete, how can I express thy glory, O Lord Shiva? With this feeling, Ramakrishna there in the Shiva temple started crying out loudly, saying again and again, O great God Shiva, how can I express thy glory? And tears flowed profusely from his eyes down his cheeks, breasts, and cloths to the floor until it got wet. So much of tears of joy, so much of tears that it flowed from his eyes. Not only it drenched his face, it came down to his shirts, it drenched all that shirt and the breast, and it went down and fell on the ground. So, such was the exuberance of love which manifested in Sri Ramakrishna, that great devotion to Lord Shiva, and tears flowed profusely from his eyes down the cheeks, breasts, and cloths to the floor until it got wet. The servants and the officers of the temple came there running from all sides, attracted by his strange behavior and by the noise produced by his weeping and his half uttered exclamations in a choked voice as that of a madman. When they saw him in that state, some were surprised and waited to see what would happen next, saying, "Oh, oh, wait, 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 it is all the madness of that junior Bhattacharya," said one. "I took it to be something else," said another. "I see it is very much in excess today." Then another told, "Will he not," said another, "ride on the shoulders of Shiva, climb up the image of the Shivalinga? Will he not? Will he not ride on the Shiva shoulder of Shiva?" Such comments, they were laughing, they were making, taunting him, making fun. Such comments went on. It is needless to say that there was also such much merriment over it. The general tendency of us human beings, you just watch yourself. Somebody, a baby or a elderly person, old person, if obese person is going and he slips and falls down. Instead of rushing and helping, what will be our reaction? Ha 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 ha, we will be laughing so loudly. So we enjoy at the sorrow and miseries of others. So that's called sadism. It is there in different degrees in us. So we have to rush. Just like the mother, when it sees the baby fall down, the mother will not laugh, ha 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 ha, but the mother will rush and take up the baby and look after that baby, console that baby. So, likewise, we should also help anybody who has fallen down, who is in trouble. But you can see all these officers, all the people who had gathered, they were making merriment, they were enjoying, they were taunting, they were sarcastic. But Sri Ramakrishna had no consciousness of the external world at all. He was not aware what is happening. Where is his mind? Complete 100% it is in Lord Shiva. Where is the mind to see all these things, hear all these things? That I am a person, I have some ego, I have some pride. So, what will the people think about me? All that thought is not at all arising in his mind. But Sri Ramakrishna had no consciousness of the external world at all, merged in the feeling of the glory of Lord Shiva. His mind had then gone up very high beyond the external world, where the tainted ideas and words of the world never reached him. Nothing, all these comments couldn't see. Now we have to learn a very, very, very great lesson in our life. When we are proceeding to our goal, we are working in the office, we are living. So many people, the neighbors, our own kith and kin, our own colleagues, our boss, so people in the office, so they will be criticizing you, they will be scolding you, they will be speaking behind the back. So when your mind is not totally focused on your work, just like Sri Ramakrishna, his mind was so much focused on Lord Shiva, He didn't have any part of the mind to think of all these things. How can he give even that portion of the mind that much if he had left? I will just tell you an incident. There was a competition of eating laddus, sweets. So whoever eats the highest amount of laddu will get the prize. So many were eating, and it went up to a big list. So many participated. Very easy competition, you see. So many participated in that laddu eating competition. And one person who came there, Mr. Gunda, he came there. He saw that wonderful competition. He was very happy. He was a glutton. Now, seeing that, he ran somewhere instead of going to the shop and participating in that sweet eating competition. He ran somewhere and came back after some time. Then started eating laddu. He could finish more than 120 laddus. People were surprised. So nobody had eaten. At the most, people could eat some 20 or 25. This Gunda, Mr. Gunda, finished more than 120 laddu. So then he told, yes, I'm finished now. Not one single laddu can go inside. Then he won the competition. Some people asked him, Sir, Mr. Gunda, we saw that you, before the competition, you ran somewhere. Where did you go, sir? He told, I ran to another sweet shop and practiced. I ate some laddus. I practiced for some time. How can I do? So after the rehearsal, I came to eat. He has already eaten so many. Before the competition, he practiced, it seems, eating. Then he rehearsed, ate many laddus, and came back to eat and perform. What do you call? He came back to participate in the competition and won it also, 120 laddus. I don't know how much he ate there in the other shop. Now, some of the people hearing all these things, they told, Sir, Mr. Gunda, sir, you might now develop some ill health, indigestion, and you may be in problem. So take some medicine, sir. And what was the reply of Mr. Gunda at that time? If I had space in my stomach to take the medicine, then I would have consumed much more laddus. I have no space at all. So much I have consumed now, there is not even little space left. If I had some space for the medicine, then I would have taken much more laddus in the competition. That was his reply. Likewise, Sri Ramakrishna's mind and personality and everything, kaya, vacha, manasa, everything has been given to God. He is thinking of Lord Shiva. It is merged in Lord Shiva's glories. And there was not even a small bit, even a little, a small, minuscule, the smallest percentage of the mind is not left. Nothing has been left. He is focusing completely on Lord Shiva. Then where can all this criticism, where can all this be heard? So why do we get upset in our workplace? Why do we get troubled in the external world? Because our mind is broken. Our mind is given to so many things, so many distractions. We do not focus. So even in the worldly things, you can focus like that. In the spiritual thing, you have to focus like this. Ramakrishna is the goal. When you are completely given your mind to the Lord, where is the space to think of all these things, petty things? The precious mind that Sri Ramakrishna himself tells, this precious mind of ours has been given to meditate on God, think on God. How can I give this precious mind to any petty things in this world? Worry over all these unnecessary petty things of the world? So that is the greatest lesson we have to learn. When you are focusing on the Lord, when you are meditating on your work, where is the time? Where is the space of the mind to think of all these things? Because your mind is distracted, because your mind is so weak, even the smallest comment, a criticism of somebody will disturb you and take away your energy. Now, so many people are criticizing him. So many people are calling him mad. So many people are making fun of him. Not even an iota of that word is disturbing Sri Ramakrishna. Why? The focus only on God and God alone. Nothing else is heard from him. In the worldly attainment too, you can see Arjuna, the great archer. What did he do? When he was practicing archery, he had so much love for archery. Dronacharya asked, they were practicing, see, in olden days, when they had to practice archery, First, it was the static things like the plantain tree. So they have to focus on the hit that arrow to the plantain tree. Then after that, they should hit a moving object. Then they have to sit on a horse or run, or while running, you have to hit that object. So like that, there will be different ways by which they used to practice archery. So now Arjuna, when they were all the other Pandavas and the Kauravas, when they were very young, as small children, Dronacharya is teaching them archery. So while practicing them, now he told, see, there is a bird there on that yonder tree. So that bird is sitting, perching there on one of the branches. All of you should aim at the eye of the bird and hit that eye of the bird. Yes, everybody had taken the bow. They were stretching that string of the bow, had put that arrow, and they were focusing their mind towards the target, the eye of the bird. Then Dronacharya started asking everybody, Duryodhana, Dharmaraya, Nakula, Bhima, everybody, other Kauravas, what are you seeing there? Where are you? What are you seeing at that object, the bird? Some told, yes, we can see the tree, we can see the branches, we can see the sky, we can see the leaves moving, everything. So everybody started telling everything around that bird. Arjuna was also focusing. Then Dronacharya asked him, his guru, archery, the guru of his arms, learning the arms. So all that Vidya. Now Astra, Shastra, Vidya. Now Arjuna's focus was so much, he told Gurudeva, Guruvarya, I can see only the eye of that bird, nothing else. Not even the head, not even the beak, not even the body of the bird, let alone the other branches and the moving leaves and the sky and the other things. I can see only the eye of the bird, that's all, nothing else. So that was the focus of Arjuna, even in worldly things like the Astra Vidya, Shastra Vidya, or that archery. If that is the case, shouldn't we do the same thing in our workplace? Concentrate on the things which we are doing, focus, and you cannot give your mind to anybody's criticism, or anybody may be speaking anything. So the example is given in the Hindi poetry and everywhere, not only in Hindi, in Sanskrit, in South Indian languages or anything, that example is given. So I'll just quote from our great devotee of Lord Rama, that is Kabir Das. So he tells, Hati chalat hai apne gat mein, Hati chalat hai apne gat mein, Kutar bukat hai, Kutar bukat hai bukwa do. Hathi, the elephant, is moving majestically on the freeway. It is such a great animal. The elephant is moving majestically on the freeway. So many fowls, crows, and dogs. At every street, they will start barking. So, looking at that animal or that elephant. But will that elephant even care to look at that dogs? It will be just happily moving majestically. Doesn't even bother about the barking of the dogs, shouting of the birds, or any other animals, because it's know how great it is. They're all nothing for it. So they are all just like vermins for that great animal. Likewise, we too should become so magnanimous. We should become so great in our devotion to the Lord and devotion to our work and everything. Whatever we do, we have to focus that nothing of these sorts, anybody's scolding, anybody's criticism, anybody's biting from the back, telling all, doing character assassination, we should not have time to worry at all. If you had some more time to worry or think, then you could have done that work more proficiently, just like Mr. Gunda. If he had even little space to take medicine, he told he would have taken much more laddus. So Ramakrishna's life gives us so many lessons. How we have to focus, how we have to concentrate, how should we be mindful, how should we be working with awareness. So, but Sri Ramakrishna had no consciousness of the external world at all, merged in the feeling of the glory of Lord Shiva. His mind had then gone away very high beyond the external world, where the tainted ideas, the words of the world never reached him. How then could the words of the temple servants expressing derision or fun reach his ears? How can that come? His focus is so much on Lord Shiva. So nothing could reach him at that time except the Lord. So at that time, Mathur Babu was at the Kali temple. Hearing that uproar in connection with the Bhattacharya's behavior, Bhattacharya is the Ramakrishna was called as the junior Bhattacharya. Senior Bhattacharya was his elder brother, Ram Kumar. Bhattacharya means the priests, the Brahmanas are called respectfully because they do the work of the puja, homa, havana, and all other things, prayers of the god. They are called Bhattacharya. Bhatta Acharya. So these are the two words joined to Bhatta Acharya or Bhattaraka, Bhatta. All these are other surnames, the people who do this work of the god. So uproar in the connections with the Bhattacharya's behavior. So Mathur came to the spot immediately. What is this uproar going in the temple? He came rushing. Mathurnath came there to the spot immediately. The officers hastened respectfully to make the way for him. Mathur Babu came and saw Sri Ramakrishna in that mood and was charmed at the devotion of Sri Ramakrishna towards Lord Shiva. He was charmed by that. Only he could understand his devotion. When someone of the officers, now they were eager, people, the servants and other people, when the king or the rich person, when the owner of the company comes, so normally they don't work properly. But when the owner or the manager comes, they want to show up that they are very great. They are so much sincere workers. So one such person here, when Mathur Babu came and saw Sri Ramakrishna in that mood and was charmed at that sight, when someone of the officers suggested to show that he's so great, he was such a great man of integrity and sincerity, suggested that the master should be forcibly. Shall I go there and forcibly remove the Bhattacharya, remove him from the Shiva temple? Shall I drag him out, push him out? Where he was then seated, holding the Shivalinga. He had embraced the Shivalinga. And holding that Shivalinga, embracing that Shivalinga, Sri Ramakrishna was seated there. Mathurnath was infuriated. He got angry and exclaimed, "Leave the Bhattacharya alone. He who interferes with the Bhattacharya, he who interferes with Sri Ramakrishna, will do at the risk of his own head. Heads will roll down. If anybody touches Sri Ramakrishna, anybody dares to touch Sri Ramakrishna and disturb him, leave him alone." That was the shout of Mathur Babu. If anybody dares to disturb him, then your head will roll down. Be careful. That was the roar of the great devotee Mathur Babu. He exclaimed, infuriated, "Leave him alone. He who interferes with Bhattacharya, with Sri Ramakrishna, will do at the risk of his own head." The officers were therefore frightened and dare not say or do anything at that time. A little afterwards, Sri Ramakrishna regained consciousness of the outer world and seeing Mathur Babu standing there with the officers of the temple, looked frightened like a boy and asked him, "Did I happen to do anything wrong? When I had no control over myself? Did I do anything wrong when I had no control over myself?" Mathur saluted him. Mathur Babu saluted him and said, "No, father. No, Baba. Na, Baba. Kichu koreni apni. No, father. You were reciting a hymn, that's all. You were reciting a hymn. You didn't do anything. I stood here lest someone should disturb you unthinkingly. I stood here only to protect you so that no fools like these people, somebody would come and disturb you. So I was just protecting you, standing here watching that, that's all. You were reciting some mantras, that's all. You didn't do any mistake." Recalling his condition at the time of his sadhana, the master Sri Ramakrishna said to us one day, those who used to come here at that time had the godly tendencies kindled very soon in the company here. Those people who came to this place, Dakshineshwar, because Sri Ramakrishna was in such a high state of intoxication of God, his mind was always in that high state. Anybody coming there would be influenced intensely by that devotional fervor. That's called satsanga. So when a person is having high devotional attitude, he is having that high devotion and faith, anybody coming to his contact or nearness, that is contagious, just like the coronavirus or any other viruses and bacteria is contagious, it spreads. Likewise, these positive things, the devotion, the feeling, the concentration, the love for the God also is contagious. It will immediately spread to everybody, whoever is nearby. That is the reason we do the satsanga, so that all the devotees gather together, and anybody's high state of mind can affect anybody else's, and your mind goes high, and everybody will be in a very high state of spirituality. That is the use of satsanga. So Ramakrishna himself used to tell those used to, this is not ordinary satsanga. This would enkindle their devotion. So Ramakrishna himself is telling those who used to come here at that time had the godly tendencies, the divinity kindled very soon in the company here, that is himself. Two youths used to come from Varanaga. They were low by birth. They were from the lowest caste. They were low by birth. Two youth used to come, maybe Kaivarta or Tamli. They were very good natured. They had great love and reverence for Hiya. So here means Sri Ramakrishna himself, and used to come very often here. One day I was sitting with them under the Panchavati when a certain state came on one of them. They too used to have this devotional fervor and feeling. So one day while I was sitting with them under the Panchavati, the trees there, Panchavati means the 5 trees, put there to do the sadhana, when a certain state came over one of them, I saw, Sri Ramakrishna is telling, I saw his breast grew red and eyes deep red. Streams of tears were rolling down. He could neither speak nor stand. He was just like one who had drunk 2 bottles of wine, that is, completely intoxicated. That mood of his was in no way coming to an end. I was then afraid and said to Mother, to Divine Mother Kali, "Oh Mother, what have you done to him? Mother, people will say, I have done something and brought about that condition to him. He has his father and others. He will have to go home just now." I passed my hand over his chest while I was saying so to Divine Mother Kali. He then became somewhat calm and went home a little afterwards. So Sri Ramakrishna is, you can see, kindling. I was talking to some person and they were telling, oh, Ramakrishna, when he was in that intense mood of madness of God, he couldn't help others, he couldn't enkindle spirituality in them. So that is all false. See, so many instances you can see from his childhood, even in his intense sadhana. During that sadhana, he was a teacher, he was the guru, he had that guru bhava. Even by the touch, he could enkindle, or even by his presence, by alone touch. By his presence, he could enkindle spirituality and intense spiritual bhava in that person, that too, that person, devotees who are from that lowest caste. So now, Ramakrishna, just by his touch, he could bring down his mind. So he would give the credit because he had obliterated completely his ego, perfect self-abnegation, which is the goal of spiritual life. What is the goal? What is the basis? What is the basic foundation of spiritual life? That is removal of ego, the lower ego, and establishing the higher ego, that I am the devotee of God. So removal of that lower self, the selfishness, the animal self, the I, the ego, the pride, and other things. That is the goal of spiritual life, not to increase that, removing that ego. So after coming to spiritual life, we become so egotistical, we increase our ego, and we think that we are great spiritual people. So on the contrary, we are going in the reverse direction. So here Sri Ramakrishna has become our ideal. Ideal means highest, completely had removed ego. So he, Ramakrishna, would not take the credit. He used to give it to Mother, Divine Mother. So he used to tell, whatever Mother will feel will happen. Who am I? I can't do it. It is all Mother, Divine Mother. So now he is giving the credit to Divine Mother while he is doing everything. So now he's telling, I was then afraid and said to Mother Kali, he had removed his own ego and established Mother Kali in his heart. What have you done? So he used to identify himself with Divine Mother Kali, thinking himself as Kali. And in reality, Mother Kali also used to live in his body. We see that back end of his life, before few days before he gave up his body, Narendra was sitting at his feet on the bed. And we see that in the life of Narendra as well as in Sri Ramakrishna, that something, a special power like that of a 2000-old current or something, transmitted from the body of Sri Ramakrishna into Narendra, that is Swami Vivekananda. So people only knew that. But one fine day, one of the disciples, Sharat Chandra Chakravarti, asked Swami Vivekananda, what was that power like 2000 watts or some watts of current flowed from Sri Ramakrishna to you? So Swami Vivekananda replied, oh, that was nothing, 2000 watt current or nothing like that power. Until then, that Kali, the Divine Mother Kali, who was residing, making that pure body of Sri Ramakrishna and was residing in that body, entered this body. Swami Vivekananda showed his own body and told that Divine Mother Kali, who was residing in the body of Sri Ramakrishna until then, she entered my body. And from then onwards, she has not allowed me to rest at all. She is making me continuously work for the welfare of the humankind. So that was the reply. It was not something current or powers. It was Divine Mother Kali. So Divine Mother Kali existed in the body of Lord Vishnu. So you can see the combination. And that Vishnu, who is having Divine Mother Kali as his Ishtadevata and making her reside in her body, just now did great devotion to Lord Shiva. What a divine play. You can see the combination. What a wonderful combination. So now Ramakrishna is not at all taking any credit. He does it and gives it to Divine Mother. So that is complete removal of his ego. That is the basics of spiritual life. I'm telling that again and again. I bring to your notice perfect self-abnegation, removal of our ego, our pride, our ahankara. That is the goal of spiritual life. So we become more and more egotistical going forward in spiritual life. So we should understand the basics and then go forward. So I was then afraid, Sri Ramakrishna is telling, and said to the Divine Mother, what have you done to him, Mother? People will say, I have done something and brought about the condition in him. He has his father and other in his home. He will have to go home just now. I passed my hand over his chest while I was saying so to Mother. He then became somewhat calm and went home a little afterwards. So even anybody coming to Sri Ramakrishna, it would rouse ordinary people who used to come there. In the company of Sri Ramakrishna, it would rouse intense God consciousness. You can see that ordinary man was not a religious man. He had little devotion to God, but by the presence, by the company of Sri Ramakrishna at that time, as you saw the statement of Sri Ramakrishna then, anybody who were coming to this place at that time, those who used to come here at that time at godly tendencies kindled very soon in the company here, that is himself. So he gave the example of those two youths. Now we have heard from the holy mouth of Sri Ramakrishna that at one time Mathur too caught up in the infectious spiritual fervor emanating from his company. Though Mathur was a worldly man, he had his wife and children in the house. He was very worldly and he was not so pure in his attitude. So, but he has great devotion to Sri Ramakrishna. Even such a worldly man, a shrewd man of business, he too. So you can see that in the company of the holy satsanga, anybody and everybody's spiritual tendencies can be awakened. So Ramakrishna himself is telling, we have heard from the holy mouth of Master that at one time Mathur too caught up in the infectious spiritual fervor emanating from his company, got into a wonderful state, and his reverence and devotion increased 1,000-fold after that. Indrawn and oblivious of the surroundings due to absorption in his spiritual mood, Sri Ramakrishna, the master, was one day pacing up and down the veranda extending east to west to the northeast of his room. Outside Sri Ramakrishna's room, if you go to Dakshineshwar, now if you have seen it, you can compare. Otherwise, you go to the Google map and ask for the map of the temple of Dakshineshwar. You can see it, zoom it and see the place. So Ramakrishna's room is there behind that big rectangular yard. So extending from that Shiva temple, 12 Shiva temple going forward, at the end of that is Ramakrishna's room. So you have to go there, enter through one of the doors there, you will enter from there. You can enter to Ramakrishna's room from another door outside and one more door towards from the Ganga. So now Sri Ramakrishna in this yard here outside his room inside the temple complex is walking. You can just imagine that place. So Ramakrishna is walking there. Mathur was then sitting by himself. So I will again explain the place. The master was one day pacing up and down the veranda, extending east to west to the northeast of his room. Mathur was then sitting by himself in one of the rooms of the separate house which stood between the temple and the Panchavati, and which is even now called the Babu's mansion. So it was not inside the courtyard, inside the temple courtyard. I'm sorry, it was outside. So the Babu's mansion, where Mathur was living, so it also goes out from the Ramakrishna's room also. The place where Sri Ramakrishna was facing was within easy range of vision from where Mathur was sitting. Therefore, Mathur, as he sat speculating on the future trend of his own worldly affairs, was also occasionally observing and thinking about Sri Ramakrishna, whom he saw walking up and down in an indrawn mood. Sri Ramakrishna was walking up and down in an indrawn mood, meditating of his own self or the Lord or Ishta Devata. He was walking there, pacing there, up and down in an indrawn mood. The master was not at all conscious, just like all the time, master was not at all conscious of the fact that Mathur was sitting in the parlor, observing him that way from time to time. And what would it have mattered even if we are conscious of it? The disparity between the domestic, social, and other condition of the two was so great that there was no cause for either of them feeling any concern for the other. Rather, it would have been reasonable for Sri Ramakrishna to feel hesitant and move away from the place had he known that Mathur's presence was there, because Ramakrishna was of that nature. He didn't want to expose or show that he was a great spiritual man or anything like that, which he could not due to the inattentiveness to external events brought on by his divine mood. For how could Sri Ramakrishna, who was an ordinary, insignificant, poor temple priest, whom people knew to be foolish and mad for not paying heed for ritualistic formalities, and who was therefore the butt of ridicule for them all, help feeling hesitant in the presence of Mathur, who was a wealthy, respectable, learned, and intelligent Babu gentleman? So the gentlemen are rich people in Bengal, they are called as Babus, and who might well be regarded as the proprietor of the temple and the whole estate of Rani Rasmani. That he had happened to be the master with a benevolent eye was the only reason why the latter had not so far been driven away from the temple. But the event that now transpired turned out to be something unthinkable and incomprehensible. What was that? For Mathur himself came all of a sudden. After looking at Sri Ramakrishna there, he had a vision. So because of that, Mathur himself came all of a sudden, running in a great flurry to Sri Ramakrishna, caught hold of his feet, bowed down to him, clasped with his hands both the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, and he started weeping. So Mathur, the rich man, the owner of the estate and the temple, who had hired Sri Ramakrishna here with salary of 7 rupees at that time, Ramakrishna would not touch that money. It would be lying there all the time. So such a person here comes running, seeing something, falls at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, clasps the feet of Sri Ramakrishna with his hands, both the feet of the master, and started weeping. What happened? What did he see? Let us see. Sri Ramakrishna himself said, I asked him, what is this, Mathur, you are doing? You are a Babu. You are the landlord. You are like a king, prince. You are the Babu, the son-in-law of Rani Rasamani. What will people think if you do like this? If anybody sees, looks at this, that you are crying, catching hold of my feet and other things, what will other people think of you? What will people think if they see you act like this? They first of all consider me mad because of my exuberance of devotion. Then if you do like this, catching hold of my feet and crying, weeping, then they will think that you are also mad. So what will people think if they see you act like this? Please be calm and get up. But who would give ear to it? Mathur was in a very high state of spirituality. He had some vision. He had seen something in the person of Sri Ramakrishna. So with all these protesting of Sri Ramakrishna, it would not make any impact on Mathur. He was just catching hold of the feet and crying and weeping. Afterwards, when Mathur became collected, he narrated everything without any reserve. He had a strange vision. And what was the vision? He said, Father, Baba, as you came forward walking in this direction, as you came forward walking in this direction, I saw you distinctly, I saw you distinctly as my mother Kali, because the Ishtadevata of Mathur was Mother Kali. I saw you distinctly as my mother, installed and worshipped in the temple. And immediately you turned about in the opposite direction. I saw you as Mahadeva, Devadideva Mahadeva, Lord Shiva himself, while you walked from one direction from there towards me this side. I could see not you, but Mother Kali walking there. My Ishtadevata, my mother Kali, the mother installed and worshipped in the temple, Dakshineshwar, Bhavatarini. I could see that Kali in you. You were not there walking from there towards this side. And immediately you turned about in the opposite direction. I saw you as Mahadeva Shiva himself. I thought at first that it was an optical illusion because he is thoroughly read in the Western education and other books, and he was educated in the Western manner. So he was not a man to believe all these things. He was skeptical. But when you see something, when you have the experience, so even now, see, in the beginning, here I rubbed my eyes. I thought at first that was an optical illusion. I didn't believe it. I rubbed my eyes as well and looked again and again. But I saw the same thing. While you are proceeding from that side to your room to this side, you are looking like Mother Kali. And when you turn back and go towards that side, then you are looking like Mahadeva Shiva. I say, I rubbed my eyes. I thought first it was an optical illusion. I couldn't believe. I was skeptical. I rubbed my eyes well and looked again, but saw the same thing. This happened as often as I looked. He repeatedly said this and wept again and again. To which Sri Ramakrishna said, why? As a matter of fact, I know nothing of this affair. Why? As a matter of fact, I know nothing of this affair. But who would listen? He told, no, I do not know anything. I don't know what kind of vision did you have. I am not so. I am just ordinary priest here. But who would listen? Mathur was not to listen because he has seen it, he had felt it. His mind was raised so much. But who would listen? I was afraid. Ramakrishna is telling, I was afraid lest someone should come to know of this and report it to Rani Rasamani. So Rani Rasamani, would she not think? She might perhaps say that I have cast a spell on him. I have done some Vashikarana and I have cast a spell on him and controlling him. Now he became calm when I consoled him in various ways. Was it for nothing that Mathur did so much for me and loved me so much? Because Divine Mother Kali gave him many such visions and experiences about here. So he had seen so many such wonderful visions in the body in the person of Sri Ramakrishna. So Ramakrishna is telling Mother Kali gave him many visions and experiences about here. It was in fact written in Mathur's horoscope. So in the Mathur's horoscope, when he was born, generally in India the practice is they will call the Jyotishi, astrologer, and they will make him because of the time, the star, the nakshatra, the tithi. They will calculate all what is going to happen to him, what are the things, remedial things we have to take if there is any dangers or diseases, all those things will be taken care of. So now in his horoscope, Mathur's horoscope, it was written, what was it written? That his chosen ideal, that is the Divine Mother Kali, would be very compassionate, would be so very compassionate to Mathur that she would assume a human body, accompany and protect him wherever he went. So this was not after he met Ramakrishna, but even as a child, when the horoscope was written, what was it told in the horoscope? It was in fact written in Mathur's horoscope that his chosen ideal, the Divine Mother Kali, would be so very compassionate to Mathur, to him, that she would assume a body, accompany and protect him wherever he went. So you can see the Divine Mother Kali in the form of Sri Ramakrishna. They are not separate. So now you can see Vishnu is not separate from Kali, Divine Mother Durga, and Divine Mother Durga is not separate from Lord Shiva. So now Ramakrishna is also proving the oneness of God. It is the one God appearing as different, many. Thenceforward, Mathur's faith, because he had the vision, became very firm. But this was the first time he got an indication that Sri Ramakrishna was surely not an ordinary man. He, towards whom he felt attracted at first sight, and whose mental attitudes he would very often detect and understand, through though others condemned them, Mathur now came to understand him to be no one other than the Divine Mother of the universe herself. So, all the people who had faith get the result. As is our faith, so is the fruit. So, all the other people who didn't believe, who didn't have faith, they got nothing. But Mathur, from the beginning, even though people were criticizing Sri Ramakrishna's activities and his divine spiritual moods as madness, but he had so much of faith in Sri Ramakrishna that faith itself brought about this wonderful vision. So faith is the answer, devotion is the answer. If you have faith, if you have devotion, you can get anything and everything. So that is proved here. So Mathur is getting everything because of his faith when nobody else believed, had faith in Sri Ramakrishna. They used to call him mad. But Mathur had so much of faith, and that gave him the result, the fruit. Mathur now came to understand Sri Ramakrishna to be no other than the Divine Mother of the universe herself, who, out of compassion for him, was residing in Sri Ramakrishna's person, body. It was from this time that he believed that the one present in the stone image in the temple had perhaps assumed a body and was accompanying him wherever wherever he went, as was written in his horoscope. So I will again read the result of his horoscope, which was written when he was born as a child. What was it written? It was in fact written in Mathur's horoscope, that is chosen ideal, that is Mother Kali, Divine Mother, would be so very compassionate to Mathur and she would assume a body, accompany and protect him wherever he went. After all these visions, Mother, Divine Mother gave him many visions and experiences about Sri Ramakrishna like this. So after all these things, what happened to Mathur? Mathur now came to understand Sri Ramakrishna to be none other than the Divine Mother Kali of the universe herself, who would, out of compassion for him, was residing in Sri Ramakrishna's body. It was from this time that he believed that the one present in the stone image in the temple, that is the Dakshineshwari Bhavatarani Kali temple, had perhaps assumed a body and was accompanying him wherever he went, and was as was written in his horoscope. From now on, Mathur's relation with Sri Ramakrishna became especially intimate. Indeed, a great good fortune smiled on Mathur. The scriptures say that not only ordinary people, but even those who have become liberated in life, Jivan Muktas, who have realized God, they are called liberated in life, Jivan Muktas, cannot but experience the result of action of both kinds. Anybody and everybody, even Jivan Muktas, people who have realized God, they have to undergo the Prarabdha Karma. They cannot escape Prarabdha Karma. So experience the result of actions of both kinds, good and bad, as long as their body lasts. Ordinary men experience the result of their good and bad actions themselves. Now, who experiences the result of good and bad actions done through the body of the liberated? For the liberated one cannot be the experiencer, as his ego has been burnt up by the knowledge, and without any ego, there is no liability to enjoyment and suffering springing from action. Who then can possibly be the experiencer? The result of actions are inevitable. Even the liberated one cannot but do some actions, good and bad, till their body falls like a dry leaf. The scriptures say that those unliberated persons who serve and love the liberated ones enjoy the result of the good actions of the latter, and those who hate them, and make them suffer and trouble those realized soul or the liberated ones, they suffer the result of bad actions done through their bodies. So similarly, there is a reading in the Satyayani recession. His sons come by the patrimony, friends the result of his good action, and foes those of his bad action. Again, similarly, the Kaushitaki read, he, the man of knowledge, when dead, shakes off the result of his good and bad actions by the strength of his knowledge. His dear Gnatis or relatives enjoy the result of his good action, and his hater and his enemies those of his bad action. So this is commentary of Shankaracharya on the Vedanta aphorism. So what is that? We have to understand this. So what is the scripture? What are the scriptures telling? Even the ordinary people like us, when we do the sadhana and realize God, after realizing God, we become liberated even while we are in this body or living. They are called Jivan Muktas, liberated even while living. So now, since they have realized God completely, so how will the karmas, the prarabdha karma which is there, which has given you this body, this life, maybe it has to go on for another 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, even after realization. You have changed your future. Now you have completely realized God. So the karmas cannot touch you. Good or bad karmas cannot touch you. Why? There is no ego within you. You are completely obliterated. Realization of God is God only resides in you. So God only is there in us. Because of the ego, all these karmas, good and bad, attacks us. So you should know that. Why do we get all the difficulties, good or bad? Everything we get because of our ego. So that strand of ego within us is the receptacle of all our bad and good karmas. So we suffer or enjoy everything because of the presence of ego. When the realized soul, when they have obliterated, destroyed that ego completely, and only God exists, how can the karma, good or bad, touch even that person? Because it is God alone who is residing in them. They cannot touch. But that karma is still there, both good and bad. So, what to do with that? So, our scriptures are telling those people who are near Him, who love Him, who serve Him, who help Him, who have faith in Him, all that good karmas, good actions He has done will be shared, will be given to those good people who serve Him. On the contrary, people who hate Him, who criticize Him, who speak ill of Him behind the back, who trouble Him, who punish Him, so all the bad actions go to them. So this is the statement of the scriptures. So people should be very, very careful while you are dealing with the realized soul, the great saints. Whatever you do, if you have faith, if you serve them, if you treat them properly with love and care, then you will be the receivers of their punya, their good actions. On the contrary, even if behind, even if you speak ill of them behind somewhere in the group, even if you trouble them unknowingly, even if you put them into pain or in whatever way, you have to share their bad karmas, you will have to suffer. So that is what our scriptures are telling here. So when handling the realized soul, should be very, very careful. If you are not careful, then you may be the recipient of their papa karma and you may have to suffer intensely. But on the contrary, if you make them happy by your service, if you help them, then you will be the receiver of their punya karma, good merits, and you will come up in life, you will gain a lot of spirituality. So these are the words of the scriptures. So now you can see extending up, if that is the case with the ordinary realized soul, then what about Jivan Muktas? What about the Avatara Purushas? If you criticize them, if you have no faith, if you trouble them, then what would be the effect of the bad karmas you receive? And if you serve them with great faith, if you have love towards them, what would be the good effect that can accrue to you? So, in the day-to-day life, please be careful. What is intense papa karma? In the Patanjali Maharshi's Raj Yoga, in the commentary it is given what is intense papa karma, what is intense punya karma, what is intense good result or good karma, meritorious deed, and what is intense sinful deed. Yes, it is explained in the Raj Yoga as if you pain the mind of good people, if you hurt the mind of good people with your harsh words and trouble, that is the intensest papa karma. If you serve the good people, good natured, godly people, if you help them, if you serve them with faith and love, that is intense punya karma. So you'll be doing whatever. So while hurting, while criticizing, while speaking ill of good people, that's why I'm using good people, devotees, should be very, very careful. Then you'll be sharing quickly their sins. You'll be getting intense sinful results. If you serve them, if you help them, the good people, if you help the and be very considerate to them in always speaking good of them, then you will get intense punya karma. So these are the words of the scriptures. So while dealing with good people, whoever it might be, your neighbors, in your own house, you should be very careful. Do not hurt anybody. Do not speak ill of anybody. Do not hurt with your harsh words. You are sharing your punya. Not only that, you have to take the intense karma in the family, a father or a mother, how they treat their children, or the children, or the husband or the wife, how they treat the other people. If they are good, if you are ill treating them, if you are causing pain, then you have to take away their karmas, eat all their papa karmas, the sins, without any masalas, you will be devouring all that thing. Even without salt or spices, you will be devouring all their sins and getting all that sinful results. So be careful, very, very be alert while dealing with other people. Don't hurt anybody in whatever possible way. If by inadvertence, if that happens, we can't help, pray to God. But I have seen people hurting with their harsh word, very bad poisonous sting, everybody in the family, every other people. I don't know how much of bad karmas they will be, because I cannot see any punya karma, good karmas in them, but I see only hurting and they by their harsh words. I don't know what hell. There'll be no place for them in the hell too, because they are constantly bringing about tears and pain to their own family members. I don't know what they are going to get out of it, how much they have to suffer, in which hell, or maybe they will not find even a place in a hell. So please be careful when you talk ill of anybody else. It is character assassination, or hurting anybody. You are taking away the papa karmas. You will have to suffer a lot. On the contrary, you have God has not made any given any poverty for sweet words and sweet behavior. You have a lot of it. That wealth is there immensely in you. Please treat everybody with love. Serve everybody. Always be very kind to everybody. That will give you a lot of karma, because the highest manifestation God is in human beings. So if you can serve them, if you can treat them properly, you're getting so much of karma. That is the highest sadhana one can make. That's why Swami Vivekananda proclaimed, and Ramakrishna also proclaimed, Shiva Gnane Jiva Seva. Serve all the human beings, your kith and kin, or father or mother, or your children, or anybody, husband or wife. So everybody, your colleagues, your boss, everybody, treat them with love, respect them. So give them the respect due, serve them, and see you can create heaven around you. Otherwise, criticize them, speak ill of them, do not work properly or hurt them, then you will create hell around you. So it's in your own hand to create heaven or hell. So let us be careful while handling human beings, because all the human beings are the highest manifestation of God. So we shall stop our discussion for today, and we will continue the same tomorrow. So until then, we will meditate, we will read this again and again, take it deeper into our heart, and then get the benefit of it, practice it in our day-to-day life. So now if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you can ask. This is the time we can devote for question and answers. Are there any questions? Are there any doubts? If nobody is having any questions or doubt, I can wind up my discussion with a closing prayer. Okay. So tomorrow there will be the same class early in the morning. Then Saturday we have the Bhagavad Gita class. Then Sunday, Monday also early morning we will be having the same with a great master discussion. Then Sunday we have the children's Hinduism class. If you have any children who are interested in learning about more about Hinduism and other aspects of spirituality and yoga and Sanskrit and Hindi, you can admit them to the contact our officials. And Monday evening we have the study of significance of worship, the science of worship. Then Tuesday evening we have the discussion on Viveka Chudamani, the crust jewel of discrimination. Wednesday evening we have the study of Bhagavad Gita, the 67th verse of the second chapter. All are welcome to that. We will close the discussion with the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshah Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Pridite Prinitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.